Hi Vineet,
Hey, hi Krishna. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for being on the Takeaway Club podcast. It is amazing having someone with your expertise, trying to just learn something around stocks and leadership. So I'm pretty excited for that. So yeah, I think can get started. And
Trust me, I'm really excited.
so I know you are a hardcore numbers guy, so that goes without saying. So I thought an interesting place to start would be uh, a very interesting stat that I came across when I was doing some research for this conversation. So this goes from BusinessWire's research, and I'm just paraphrasing here. During the pandemic year, Gen Z clocked in 1 or 2% increase in their mobile usage. Of course, we all did that, but the fascinating part was the biggest increase in terms of our spend went towards stock and trading apps. And I believe even I was someone who started around the same time when the pandemic hit. So, as someone who has been a lifelong finance enthusiast, what do you think that this is panning out to be?
We are into financial markets by the virtue of our objective of our organization, which is to simplify finance for everyone. Uh, we have two verticals. One is the learning vertical, where we have elearnmarkets.com, where we train people on financial markets. And the other one is StockEdge, where people can analyze stocks in which they want to invest or to identify stocks to invest. Now, answering your question, this pandemic last almost 2 years now, 1.5 year, right? This period has been a catalyst, or I can say inflection point in the growth of entire investment tech, right? Anything which was not tech oriented didn't grow that much. What actually grew was what was tech oriented. So people who, now if you look at the numbers, in last starting from April last year to this March, right? This one financial year, in our country, we added almost 15 million accounts, okay? Demat trading accounts. And if you look at the total size before that, it was around 4 crores, which is 40 million. So in a single year, we have added 15 million basically. So a addition of around 35% on the base, right? And this year we are expected to grow even faster. So a country like India, and you look at the penetration of stock markets, it's growing exponentially now. 30-35% CAGR is huge, right? And this growth has come on back of technology, number one. Number two, uh, financialization of savings. After demonetization, what has happened is people have realized that they need to divert their resources to financial markets, because what they are getting with FD, or let's say with non-financial market assets like real estate, gold, etc., is not even beating inflation in certain cases, right? So to beat inflation, to generate a higher than inflation return, they have to look into mutual and direct equity investments. So with that, we have seen that kind of growth, right? And this growth is continuing. And what I feel is in next 1 to 2 years, we'll double the size which we had pre-COVID and what we'll have post-COVID, right? So pre-COVID is like 30-40 years of stock market journey which India had, right? And post-COVID is just 2 to 3 years. So that will be equal. So that's the kind of growth we are talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing how tech has kind of enabled the growth that it has, right? So it has fast tracked like probably a decade worth of growth in the span of 2 years,
See,
to say
we
the
are at
least.
a very beautiful juncture of edtech and fintech, right? And both saw a inflection point in their journey, right? If this COVID have not been there, the similar growth would have taken a decade or two, maybe,
Right.
right? No one was expecting before COVID that the entire schools will shift online,
That's
right?
true.
Every kid will be sitting at home like you and me, what we are doing right now, and they'll start
Right.
studying in this. Similarly, in stock markets, no one thought that the entire country will be closed and some players will be opening KYCs, will be doing KYCs and will be opening accounts without any manual interventions. We were opening a broking account was a complicated stuff earlier. You had to sign on the document at around 25-30 places, right? And a human being was required to go and explain you. All of that is gone with eKYC coming in, with the demat account opening online. right? And as I told you, 1.5 million 1.5 million every month was the addition. So around 20 million people opened fresh demat accounts. So huge growth, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
technology definitely had a role.
All right. Yeah. Maybe we will turn the clock a little bit here and talk about your journey uh, as a professional, right? So you had a CA degree, which feels like quite some time ago, right? So it was in the mid 2000s, and then you got your master's from IAM, and there was a short stint trying to, teach uh, for people who are trying to get into IAMs, which was, I guess, some 10, 12 years ago, probably a little ahead of the time. Um, that idea was. So, what were some of the learnings that you had in your early years that gave you the confidence, or more specifically, helped you evaluate um, your idea for what turned out to be Elon markets, right?
Hey Krishna, I must congratulate you on your the research which you do. So you got the facts right. I did my CA, and then in 2006 to 2008, I did my MBA from IIM Indore, and the major was finance. So I have been a finance person, right? And when I was in college, I realized this when I was doing my post graduation MBA. I realized this that the education is limited to getting into premier institutes, and the kind of preparation which is required, uh, it is limited to top tier cities, right? If you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, it becomes difficult to access good quality education. And that's why we see very few people coming from these places to IIMs and all. So I thought, why not use internet? And this was an idea which came up while I was into the college, right? And in some first year or second year. And I felt a big need of making this education accessible, number one, and affordable. And I thought it's quite possible because while doing MBA, we were using intranet, right, to such a large extent that half of our education was on intranet and internet, right? Without internet, you can't even survive a day in an MBA college, right? So I thought, when we are doing, and we used to have access to a lot of libraries of Harvard, etc. So we thought that this internet can solve a lot of problems, and it was an obvious thing for anyone thinking to do something out of an MBA college, that use internet and solve some problem. So for me, the problem was accessibility of education. And incidentally, I just gave CAT because to get into IIMs you have to give CAT. So I thought, why not, let's start with that, let's make it online. And that was in 2008. And as you did your research, right, and as you pointed out, right, it was ahead of time, I believe, because people started accepting it as a free mode, right? But monetizing it, people using their credit card to pay for something which is digital, right, some videos, etc., was unheard of, right? And it was, it had its own traction. So it I could not monetize it well. So from there, what I did was, it was a huge learning experience. I moved ahead. I did a corporate job for a year's time in CRISIL, which is again in Chennai. So I have another connect with you. Worked there. I stayed in Chennai for a year or so. And then I joined, my partner was doing something in education and related to financial market. So financial market was another love because I had a finance background, and while doing my CA, etc., we always thought that, because of our natural affinity towards financial markets, being from finance background, I thought if there would have been someone who can guide us with trading, with investing, right, step by step. But no one was again available. And there were few very costly, expensive trainers out there in Mumbai, right? But they were out of reach for common man. And when we had a discussion, Vivek and me, my partner Vivek and me, again the same, the problem which we faced while doing, and he's also a chartered accountant and MBA from my Indore, similar background. And we thought that if we democratize financial markets, we and again, you see, financial market is related to money, and it is kept to a very small audience. Think about it. Just 2% of the entire population of the country has access to financial markets, and it's a place where money is made, right, if you do it the right way. And it's a lot of money is lost if you do it the wrong way. But This was kept only to 2% of the people. And we thought that there is a great opportunity. If you look at developed countries, which have 50% plus penetration of equity markets and mutual funds. So I thought it's a good opportunity to train people on that. And for that, again, the education has to be made accessible and affordable. That's what we started working in 2014-15. That's e-learn market as a platform, which has now got 1 million plus users, right? And that's how the journey panned out, right? And the ideation, it always happens, I believe. You have to passionately feel for that problem, and you only passionately feel for a problem when you have faced it yourself, right? And then and as an entrepreneur, there has been this learning that don't get too passionate about your idea only, right? You have to understand, you have to do a market research to understand the opportunity is big enough, that the total available market for the opportunity is either big enough or it is growing at an exponential pace, right? Thankfully for us, it started growing at a good pace, as I told you. So yeah, that's all.
So I have a follow-up on that. So you are from a hardcore finance background, and Kolkata is probably not one of the first cities that you would think of when talking about digital or tech even, right? And
True.
as you mentioned, one of your co-founders, he also comes from a similar background as you. So what were some of the challenges? More specifically, how did you address that gap in your skill set and your exposure, where you are trying to build out a platform that was completely, going to be reliant on the digital landscape, but not having the right kind of exposure compared with someone from a proper tech background?
Uh, See, Krishna, if you clearly understand a problem, right, that this is the problem in which I want to solve, you will get resources to solve that problem. That's the first part of the answer. The second part, we always felt, luckily, we always felt that we are in a better position compared to a techie to solve financial market problems, because we were from financial market background. We understood how personal finance works, how an individual thinks about his money, right? Someone who is just earning 10,000 to someone who is probably earning 10 crores. We understand how people think about the money aspect, right? And especially when they invest in financial markets, what's the mindset? What do we want? How do we save capital erosion, which is happening, right? We understood these aspects, and we thought that we are better off than any engineer, probably only, right, who doesn't understand the financial market aspect of it. See, when we talk fintech, people only look at tech, they don't look at the fin, which is finance, or edtech, so education and technology. So yeah, so we felt that we are very strong in the first part, right, and we'll figure out the second part. And we were very lucky, I tell you, this rarely happens. We had a third partner, Vinay Pagaria. He is the one who looks after tech, right? And he has been a software person from last 25 years without being a software engineer. He's actually a chartered accountant, okay? And out of his extreme passion, he started coding in from class 9 onwards, right? And we got a deadly combination of a person who is deep into finance, right, and also deep into technology, right? And that's what led to a product like StockEdge and e-learn markets, which is actually loved because of its simplicity and because of its UI, UX, and every aspect of the tech, right? And we were able to solve that problem. Interestingly, your other part of your question, which is Kolkata, you know, I personally believe that it's a blessing in disguise. The team which we have built here, we have around 160 people team, right? Ultimately the team builds the product, the team builds the business, right? You are more of a coordinator or like a traffic guard standing on a signal, right, where you are just directing people where to go. That's all. You don't have a big role to play, I believe, as a founder, right? These people who are working in and who are putting their blood and soul, I believe in a city like Calcutta, people are very culture oriented and they are passionate about the overall objective of the organization. And we have a low attrition rate. We have a very passionate team, right? So young team, and that's, I think, because of we are in Calcutta, right? So things which looks from outside as a problem were actually blessings. So that's what worked for us. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to come back to your stature as a leader for both Elon Markets and StockEdge at a later point in the conversation. So again, going back to your say 2 3 years into Elon Markets, which is probably what early 2014 or 2015. So you have a fair bit of success, and you could have continued to take on the same path. But what are some of the opportunities or gaps that you could observe within the system that you felt that there was a need for something more than just Elon Markets, which again turned out to be the StockEdge app that we know today?
Yeah, yeah. So when we started, so first point was we started doing something offline before even we launched Elon Markets, because we felt very strongly for the financial markets education as a piece, and we thought we have to train people on this aspect, because this was kind of a black hole for a lot of people. Didn't understand. But then we realized very soon that with physical classroom and all, expanding all over the country is difficult, and it doesn't make business sense to expand to tier 2 tier 3 cities, because the audience will be very limited, because people are not yet investing in financial market, forget about learning in the financial markets. So we thought tech is the way to go, and I had a digital background because of my fire up the first venture which I did, which was into online CAD preparation. So we started that. Once we were into it and we started getting users and users started paying, right, we thought it's the right way to go ahead. But one thing which I realized was, it's not that one idea which stuck to our mind, that financial market education. What happens is, once you launch, and if you do it the right way, you get immense feedback from the people and you talk to them. You build in you have to build in systems to capture feedback of users and so on and so forth. So what was actually happening is, the practicality was lacking, right? Because people ultimately have to. So I learned something like how to analyze a balance sheet or how to look into financial ratios. They need a place where they can actually look at it. Now there were very few sources, and the sources which were there were cluttered, right? Not structured, very complicated, and that's made finance even more complicated. Number one. Number two, the sources which were good were very, very expensive, right, and out of reach of individuals. So I just to quote Bloomberg, right? Bloomberg charges more than 1.5 lakhs for 1 month access of their terminal. Obviously, it's out of reach of individuals. Only very big institutions can take that. So we thought that why not make a common man's Bloomberg, right? And it was primarily meant for our students, that once they learn how to analyze a balance sheet or they learn how to analyze a stock, they should have something. So we started building some tool which can give them those access, and we wanted to keep it as minimum cost as possible. We launched it, and with time people started loving the simplicity, because this was actually taking them out from the complexities which were there and giving them a tool which was very clean, neat, and only gave information which was required without any advertisement and so on. So people started latching to that and downloading StockEdge. And slowly what happens is, it became bigger in terms of user base. It became bigger than Elon Markets, right? So we have almost 2 million downloads in StockEdge now, and we have a parallel web version which is equally big, and so on. So that's what led to StockEdge, and then obviously it has its own audience, which also started giving feedback, and that led to the growth of that product. So in short, the learning from that is user feedback, or getting continuous feedback from users, not only when they give it, but how do you seek feedback, right? All of that is very, very important in continuous growth of your product.
So I have a follow-up question to that, and feel free to correct me if my understanding of the space is way off here. So you start off with Elon, which solves the problem of lack of resources for people trying to get started with the stock market, and StockEdge solves for this problem of someone who has through that level one and in level two where they are trying to figure out their research and figure out what stocks should go into their portfolio and all that. So, which is where a StockEdge. It feels like a natural next step is a place where I can actually go ahead and execute these orders, right? Which is a brokerage firm. So, have you thought about something like that, or is it a totally different ballgame altogether?
No, no, you're absolutely on the track, and that's what our thought process is. I'll tell you, when I say democratizing investing, what you see on my screen. So we have 4 steps on that. So one step is learning. First step is learning. You need to learn about investments, how to do that. Because if you do that without learning, it's just like driving a car without getting the proper training, and you are sure to lose money in markets. Right? It's a risky game. Number 2 is analyzing, which is having a proper data information and a decision support system, which is stockage. Third step is, after learning and analysis, the third step is collaborating. What happens is, investments generally don't happen in silos. You will discuss it with others, you will discuss it with experts, your friends, what they are doing, you would like to know, and so on and so forth. So we are building this third piece, which will be a social platform around investing. Okay. And the fourth piece is execution, which is transaction, which you rightly pointed out, which also we are parallelly working. Very soon you will probably see that people will be able to transact from StockEdge itself, right? And they don't have to. So whatever broker they have, right? We are trying to bring in more and more brokers into our platform. So they just need to log in and seamlessly transact from our platform itself. So 4 steps: learning, analyzing, collaborating with others, and the fourth one is transacting, right? And that's how our journey was well defined. And we are working on one piece at a time. 2 pieces we have completed. The third and fourth piece we are right now working, and within this year we'll launch the third and the fourth piece also. Fourth as a feature within StockEdge, and third as a separate product. So yeah, that's what we are working on. So you're bang on in your understanding.
Right. I think that brings me to this, right? So you have obviously, given your experience, you have this rock solid clarity on where you want to be from where you are, right? So these different phases of your journey, which you have classified as 1, 2, 3, 4, right? From what you just said. So first is learning, next is analyzing, then collaborating with friends, and then going ahead and executing, right? So as a founder, how do you think about, or how do you validate that your company and your model is ready for the subsequent phase at any given point of time?
So generally what happens is, there are 2 sides to it. One, what customers want, right? And the second is what you have in mind. So the intuition from experience which comes up. I would say it's not that the customer always know what they want. It's not like that, right? And it's not also that you always know what the customer wants, right? And you have to have a fine balance. So you need to have a strong conviction on certain ideas which are not yet tested. Because if you'll go and ask a customer about a social platform on investing, they might not understand because they have not seen something similar in India yet. Okay, there are models outside, but in India they have not seen something similar. Similarly, if someone is telling you that your product needs this, and you feel, I never thought about this. For example, when they are watching a video in eLearn Markets, which is a learning management system. So they told us that the consumption, so we have 1 GB of data in a day with Geo coming in, or 1.5 GB of data, and we play 2 videos of yours, and they consume all the data, right? So we thought it's so important to optimize all the videos and transcode them and do this, that, 20 things with videos itself, right? Earlier we were putting it at the highest format possible so that the resolution is high. So something which you feel is right, the customer might feel, no, it's not right. I want it at a much lower resolution, maybe, but a decent resolution, but my data is very important, right? So you get every day nudges. Every day you get nudges from your customers, do this, do that, and you should do that, right? So whatever is sensible. So that gives you a perspective on the timing, that when do you need to switch things, right? Also, you do a lot of A/B testings within your products, right, to see what is right, what is not right. You do test launches, to see in a low tech format, or you can call it a MVP, right? You launch something and see whether people are taking it or not, showing some interest. And by God's grace, because of some decent audience we have, it's easy to test anything out. Okay, we throw something and 1,000 people will give response to us, so we know, and we use that a lot in terms of understanding. So all these factors together, put together, gives us a understanding of the timing. And it's not that we get it 100% right all the time. Obviously we go wrong, and we understand that we'll fail in certain cases. The most crucial thing is when you are able, when your tech team, when your engineering team is able to complete that project, right? You thought the right time is March 2021, but probably it stretches by another 3 months. So that happens, right? And that's the part of the game. You always try to solve that problem, but that'll stay. Yeah.
Right. I think that's an amazing insight for me personally. Coming from a very proper tech background, I'm used to this overemphasis on product and user experience, right? But when I go back and use traditional services, banking being a very classic example, that is also happened to be on the receiving end of a lot of jokes, is how they don't take into account the user experience aspect when building and designing their products. So it looks like you have made it a point to make that as one of the top priorities for your users as you continue to build out different products on top of what you have already.
That's there, and I tell you something more on that. A small thing, right? So we have NPS, the Net Promoter Score, and a lot of ways of capturing this thing. But one I feel is the product manager, right? Whoever is developing the product, he should continuously, every day, he should spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes on his own product by doing various journeys, right? And every step critically examine that how the investor. So for example, you gave example of banking, right? We use India's best banker, and we use their tech platform, and I absolutely don't like their product, right? For everything, simplest thing, I have to do 10 clicks,
Right.
right? Easily 7 8 clicks could be removed, right? But no one is thinking about it. Let's say a collapsible menu is there, so they'll say click on that, then they'll, why click on that, why don't you just open it up, right?
Right.
So there are small things on the tech side, right, which can be easily solved if you want to experience the same product yourself, because you are
Right.
also a human being. You understand what you use 20 products, you understand what's the smallest issue with your product. So use your product, and you'll understand what's the problem the user might be facing, right? So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting problem to think through, right? So I think a lot has got to do with the fact that there are no alternatives as such, right? So if you're not going to go to a bank for your finances, where else are you going to go? So uh, a, a sense of complacency has clearly kicked in the way that things are done, right? But as someone who had been very conscious of this fact, and I can clearly see that you understand the importance of having a good user experience. Likewise, your co-founder compliments you that they are into software. At the same time, they understand the intricacies of something that is related to finance as well. So, how do you think that an industry like banking can go on to solve this problem? Obviously, it can't be done overnight. If you were given the keys to go ahead and change the way things are done, how would you go about dealing with this?
See, I think the solution to a lot of problems, including banking or including any large institution where things become slow because of the structures which are there. The idea is startup. And what do I mean by startup? Why can't there be, let's say we talk about Axis Bank or HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank or SBI Bank. Why can't we just have a department which acts like a startup, which has got objectives and key results defined like a startup, led by individuals who have passion of an entrepreneur, right? They will produce results which are mind boggling. What happens is the people with who have been doing traditional things, and they are trusted with new age technology, right? And let's say you are working on a product, and You have to match the mindset of a person who has been sitting there with doing things traditionally. You will go and show him the product and he'll say, no, things here work in this way and I need this in menu. I need 20 different. Think about a platform which, so let's say I talk from my industry, broking, right? What do you want at the end of the day as an investor? Buy and sell. That's all, right? You list the securities, you tell me, you give me buttons of buy and sell, and show me what I have bought and sold. That's all, right? So clean. But if you look at any broker's app or website, you'll find 100 options. They want to sell you gold, they want to sell you mutual funds, they want to advertise, they want to, it makes it so complicated. Similarly, banking, there are certain interfaces which are so clean, right? It's the attention span of an individual has gone down significantly. We can't see so many things. With AI, with data, with machine learning, you understand what a user is using every day. Make it clean, make it neat. So my point is, these are intricate things which cannot be explained. These have to be lived, and the person who is living it, you need to bring it into the system, right? Create a startup within your company, because large companies move very slowly. When they decide we have to do it, they'll hire people. Now the hired people might not have the equal passion, right? So why not create startup within your organization and then build it? Same with government organizations, right? So that's what I feel.
I'm very glad that you brought up, the size being a factor to, or actually rather than factor, being an impediment to getting things done fast, right? So let's talk about stockage here, right? So I think you are at 160, 170 odd people. So I think that's slightly you just hit that Dunbar number, right? So, what are some of the measures or approaches in culture that you have taken to ensure that your company still maintains that startup mindset to the things that they do?
Yeah. So if you look at the way we behave in a family, that's very different from the way we behave when we are a tribe, or we are in a village or in a city, right? I'm referring the book called Blitzscaling. Okay. So what I mean is, when you grow at every stage, you need to change the way you as a founder you're working, right? And at times what happens is you are demoted also. It's not that you always keep growing. You are demoted because you will at times need people who are smarter than you. And that's right, all the time you need people, you need to hire people who are smarter than you. Otherwise, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are probably not in the right room, as they say. So my point is, when you grow, you have to be very, very cautious. New problems will come, new opportunities will come. Certain things we have kept in mind is the span of management of every manager in our organization, right? We don't want to exceed more than 6 people under one person. That's what we have kept, so that, and every individual, we emphasize on more one-to-ones. I personally feel the group meetings should be kept as minimum as possible, because that's wastage of a lot of man hours. And mostly it's like an email where you just keep people CC. Similarly, on your meetings you call everyone, and it's a waste of time for most of them. uh, so keep it one to one, right? And one individual as a manager can keep one to one with 6 people. The more they talk one to one, the transfusion of culture is easy. So I have, let's say, 6 people reporting to me. I tell them, they tell people below that. And you have to have a structure where the objective of the organization is very clearly defined and communicated to everyone, and the key results expected of every individual is very clearly laid out, right, and reiterated, so that everyone in the organization is aware what is the result expected out of him, and what is the bigger objective he's working on, and what's his objective or his department's objective, right? When these things are clear, right, you can scale up faster. Yeah.
That's again, I feel like I keep coming back to how insightful the conversation is, but that is uh, that is a pretty accurate way of describing your answers, right? So before we move on to the random deck, I have a couple around the Gen Z mentality towards stocks, right? So on the one hand, it is very good news that the usage of these apps have skyrocketed, right? But at the same time, there is still a lot of reservation when it comes to investing and stock market. And even if you look at my circle itself, I have a lot of friends who are smart, who have that disposable income and an inclination to invest. But still, there is something that is stopping them from actually going ahead, right? Maybe it has got to do with stories of losing money in the stock market that they were used to hearing growing up, or maybe it is the sheer that bureaucracy factor, that how difficult it is for you to get things done in a financial market, right? Or how much of it do you feel is improving or has improved exponentially in the last 1 or 2 years? And how can you fast track so that you can get more people who are like the perfect, we call it the product market fit, right? So how do you feel like you can get those people on board?
See, the short answer is education. Okay? I feel people, anything which is new to them, they have a apprehension about it, right? And financial markets so far has been touted as very complicated subject, and people used to stay away from it. Nothing is complicated after at the end of the day, right? It's just that you were not focused enough on that subject. Once you start focusing, then it doesn't remain complicated. Much more complicated things are getting adopted much more faster. The case in line is cryptos, right? So when we look at cryptocurrencies, right, and these are much more complex securities or much more complex asset classes compared to equity, right? But people feel, and people are adopting it because they're not looking at what it is, right? Or what is the intrinsic value of a crypto. What they are looking at is the speculation opportunity which is there. I put in money today, tomorrow it gets multiplied. So that's the frenzy which is catching people. So my point is education is extremely important. And what we are doing is we have the DNA of our organization is education. What we have done is built both Elon markets and StockEdge around content, right? And we are producing huge amount of content, very high quality video content, and content in all the formats possible, right? To educate people and for free. If you go to Elon markets, you will get huge number of courses and articles, ebooks, etc., which are for free. In StockEdge, 70 to 80% of the data analytics piece, it's free, right? So what we are saying is come to our platform, learn, and if you feel you want to advanced skill sets you want to adopt, or you want to do certification courses, then pay for us. Or you want to do advanced analytics, then pay to StockEdge. But our whole idea is to educate, right? And when we are actually educating, we are what you said, how do we speed up the process? So a lot of new users who are coming in and who are lost, right, we are trying to help them through free education. Just to give you an example, on YouTube we have like 500,000 subscribers on our channel, and our views are even better than the kind of subscribers we have. So we are doing it through Telegram, through Facebook, Insta, every platform possible, through our website, through our blog, and all of that is for free. So I would say majority of our content creation capability goes into creating free and extremely high quality content, right? And that's how we can solve this problem of removing the apprehension from individuals mind about investing, about trading, right? And one thing which I feel, it's not about us, but it's about the culture, right? It's about the overall the way we think about money. See, people are not saving enough. People who are saving, they are not investing enough, right? Forget about not investing in equity or mutual fund. They're not even investing it in FD or anywhere. They are keeping it in their savings account, right? Which is a wastage of their money. So we are educating people from the basics, that you need to first save, and then there are avenues to invest, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, so crypto versus stocks it is. So I guess you guys have some catching up to do in terms of making these content more catchy and viral.
True.
Cool. So yeah, I think with that we will move to the final part of the conversation, which I like to call as a random take. The thesis is simple, right? So I like to go on a monologue
Mm.
with my questions, as you might have noticed. I'm not gonna do that with the random deck. I'm gonna keep my questions fast and short, but you feel free
Yep.
to elaborate wherever you want, right? Okay, so
Sure.
first one, what is an absolute non-negotiable for you in life?
Uh, you know, I feel honesty at the end of the day in your work is non-negotiable, right? And that's the cornerstone of finance also. One problem again with financial markets, as you say, this apprehension about it being a scam, right? The problems which were so far were surrounded the market. So to bring it out of that kind of context, every player in the ecosystem has to keep honesty as the highest benchmark, and it has to be an absolute, not relative. So that's what I feel. We need to set standards in that. So that's a non-negotiable fact, and that's clearly communicated to everyone in the organization also. Yeah.
Right. What is your favorite word in English?
It's perseverance, right? And the reason of that is, when someone tells me whatever small success you have achieved in life, what's the most important thing, I say it's not passion, it's not education, it's not money, it's nothing, it's perseverance. If you stick around for a long time, right, you will get it right ultimately.
Right. Yeah. I think interestingly, Jibraj, who I had on the podcast earlier in the previous episode, of course, who had you on his podcast as well, had a similar
Yeah,
thought around that subject, right? So the Calvin Coolidge quote
I
goes.
think
So
all everyone from Calcutta has similar mindset.
that's probably true as well. Yeah. So what is an advice that you would have given to your 17-year-old self? I know when 17, you probably had a lot figured out looking at your journey. So, was there something that
No, no,
you would
no,
have
no, no,
liked
no.
to?
That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Sorry, I'll correct you there. I'm
Yeah,
still figuring out a lot of things, and I at times feel that I'm late in things, but it's okay. It's better late than never, right? So to a 17-year-old, I'll say, right, I'm a voracious reader now, right? But to my 17-year self, I would say read more and more and network more and more. The more people you build, so network is a wrong word, right? I would say build more relationships,
all right.
right? Because these two things, the reading will help you find yourself, and the networking or the building relationship will help you find good other people. So these two things are very, very important. Do that regularly.
Awesome. So, I think that's a nice segue into the next one I have here. What is a book that you have gifted the most, or a book that you'd like to gift to a lot of people? Something that you
Yeah.
have, learned a lot from.
So earlier I used to give The Richest Man in Babylon. All right. It was a very thin book, but it had very good nuggets of so to young people whom I used to meet, I used to give that book. Right now, I've switched to the Psychology of Money, which was recently like a couple of years old, I
All
think.
right.
I've switched to that, and I feel it's a very profound book, simple, nicely written. If anyone can read it. So I give it to even the young ones in school and colleges. So yeah, that's my current favorite in terms of gifting. Yeah.
Right. So if you had to go with a non-finance book, what would that be?
See, the non-finance book, there is a book called The Art of Thinking Clearly. Okay. So it tells you about all the biases which we normally have, So it's a good book to understand the problems which typically as an individual, you always encounter those problems. Uh, that's one book. It's by Rolf Dobelli, The Art of Thinking Clearly. That's the book. Yeah.
That sounds interesting. I'm gonna check that out soon. So what is a good habit that you're trying to work into your life, and a bad habit that you're trying to get rid of?
So in terms of the good habit, what I'm doing right now is planning my day to the T as much as possible, right? And that's the thing I do before I start my laptop or I get into anything regarding my work. so that my work is more structured and I get more productive throughout the day. So having a plan every day, that's the good habit I'm working on right now. And the bad habit which I'm trying to remove is having unplanned weekends. Because see, for a person who's working and on weekends, let's say on the Sunday, when it is not structured, you end up wasting all the day. And I feel you need to have a balance of personal and professional life, so your weekend should be planned. I'm not saying by plan that you need to work, but you need to know what's going on the weekends. So these are the two things I'm working on.
If you could nominate someone in your network for the Takeaway Club podcast, now that you have been here, you know what to expect out of it. So, who's someone that you'd really like for their opinion to be heard? Someone, who's a deep thinker that would make for a great guest on the show.
So I have a friend who we passed out the same year from IIM Indore. His name is Anubhav Jain. Okay, and he is also a founder of a company called Rupify. Okay, so he we are very close friends, and I learned a lot from him in terms of about startups, about things work, and we do normal. I continuously am in touch. He's in Bangalore, so we keep talking about different aspects, the problem which we face, and we learn from each other. So I think your audience also would like to uh, hear from someone who is kind of a guide for me also, right? And this obviously apart from my partner Vivek, who is my friend, philosopher, guide, because we work all the time together, and he is an amazing individual, and he is a celebrity now himself, because if you look his social media profiles, and he is known very very widely in financial markets now. So he is another person, especially for financial markets, if you want to introduce.
Awesome. So, to wrap up with, if there was a billboard in every town in the world, and you get to decide what goes on into that billboard, what message would you give, which would basically be seen by everyone in the world?
That's a difficult one. So, um, you know, as an educational message, I would say it should be read more, right? And be open to new ideas. And reading gives you that perspective. So read more. If it has to be just two words, like Nike has this, let's do it, or whatever, right? So similarly, with just two words, I would say read more, right? And read variety, so that you get wider perspective of things. uh, yeah, that's what is coming to my mind right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to wrap up the conversation as well. Read more, right?
True.
Thank you, Vinay. So this was an absolute pleasure for me.
Thank you so much. It was all, the pleasure was all mine, and I was also pleasantly surprised by the questions you had in mind, right? And surprisingly, this whole conversation was impromptu and it went so nice. So the pleasure is all mine. Thanks a lot for having me here.